Hello and welcome back to the Culture Cave. I'm here with my friend Emmett. Emmett, how are you today?
I'm doing good, and it's good to be with you here at the end or the beginning, depending on how we view things with a time
Yeah,
travel show. You know?
basically, yeah, it's kind of like being at both, isn't it? Especially like certain things that happen in this episode. First of all, we'll
Definitely.
say, memories go out, and my good feelings go out to our boy Salamander Man, gone but not forgotten. We didn't really get much of him in this first season finale, unfortunately. Hopefully, a spin off is coming. What do you think,
Yeah,
Emmett,
the
about our
salamander tales.
the Salamander Tales? Now, you might be questioning if you're watching this video based on me saying something about dark in the title or on the thumbnail, and you've never seen us talk about Sisyphus before. If you don't care about the spoils of this show, well, there might be a cool conversation about the similarities and differences between this and Dark, which Emmett and I are going to have a small chat on after we finish talking about the episode in general. Because I think that it's interesting to see how they've both decided to finish their show with a lot of similarities, but also a fair bit of differences too. So I would love to have a little chat with Emmett about that because he has now seen Dark, as we know from the After Dark podcast. So I'd love to have a chat about that with you at the end. So guys, I'll put timestamps in the description. So along the bottom, you can see when we're talking about Dark. If you want to skip to that, you can. If you want to stay for our actual chat about the finale of Sisyphus itself, you can stay here for that as well. Right, Emmett. I thought where we would start is first of all, what did you think of the finale overall?
It's very fast paced. I think we were talking about this a little bit before we came on the call. A lot happens. It's very this reference might go over your head a bit because I know you don't really watch it, but like Doctor Who has this feeling a lot in its season finales where
Mm.
there's a lot to explain in a very short amount of time. So like the finale really has to like click on very quickly. You move from one scene to the other, but it was still like quite enjoyable. Like at this point, we've got like Stockholm syndrome with Sisyphus. So like even if it had been terrible, I still probably would have enjoyed it. But there was like a lot of like nice little moments in it that was sort of worthwhile, you know?
Yeah, I think anyone who's only going to watch a time travel show for like this like accurate science depictions of time travel probably weren't going to stick around in this show till the end anyway. So I think the people who did stick around to the end are going to enjoy what we were given, to be honest with you. I mean, we should have predicted from episode one that the whole thing was going to end with Han Tae-sul knowing the answer. Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
That's like the foreshadowing has been there the whole way through. It has been his story the whole time. Of course, he was going to figure it out. So basically, what happens is, first of all, they're in the church, and Sigma's gonna shoot Hay, just like it has happened a lot of times before. And Hante Sul decides that that's not gonna happen, and then there's some mysterious people start sniping them.
Yeah, like a Hunter Soul sort of imply like because Hunter Soul like sort of tricks him for a minute and he says I'm not going to do it and then he tries to threaten Sohei with like the gun
Yeah,
and then Hunter Soul's like you're not going to be able to shoot her and he's like no I've done it so many times before and then like he tries to but then his hand starts doing the classic Sisyphus
yeah.
timelines changing glitch
It's because the
effect.
phone call comes in as well, isn't it? Because the phone call comes
Yeah,
in from himself, and he
yeah.
gets that sort of feeling from himself. But also, it's proof to him as well that actually his timeline is different now based on what it was before, because he didn't make that call in the past.
Yeah, the timeline has changed too significantly for him to exist at that point, and then he starts getting like shot down, and then Hante Soil, in typical Hante Soil fashion, takes over for a minute. It's like, yes, I had this all planned. We're going to have to now go back in time and like do all this stuff. Like he reveals that like he had basically had this plan worked out since like the moment he had locked Hay in the bunker.
A couple
Like
episodes
he had
ago, yeah.
yeah, he had solidified like everything since then was like his plan, which I think was the first time that he said to Sigma, "This is all going to go according to my plan." So
Yeah,
fair play. He called his shot and he was right on that one.
yeah, good on
Um,
him.
yeah, it's impressive. Like usually when I tell someone that I've got like this locked in, it's just set up for me to completely fall on my backside. But not all of us are as clumsy as me.
Yeah, well, I will say, obviously, my prediction on Salamander Man was completely wrong in terms of them going back and turning into him.
Yeah.
But they did have to go back and become a sniper, so I was kind of right here, Emmett.
You were on the right tracks, just the wrong person was sniping.
Yeah,
So like they do go back. They use the time machine that Sigma had built to go back in time and kill Sigma, which is very funny.
Yeah.
Also, and also, like, we like find out a whole lot of information about Mr. Park's family and that
Mm-hmm.
whole situation. That was
Bing Bing.
crazy.
Yeah,
Bing
Bing.
Bing was
So
his daughter.
Bing Bing's been his daughter the whole time,
Yeah,
which is really, really fascinating to me. The way this, we'll get into this when we're comparing it with Dark, of course, but the way that the time changing is happening, it's part of me wants to try and understand it, and part of me's just like, I know there's no point because it's just a rip and yarn, good fun, but like,
yeah,
so the idea is that obviously when Bing Bing traveled back in time, it changed that world. But how did
yeah,
it's really interesting, like, because she remembered that because she has now actually successfully made it back in time, that means that it has changed now. So she stops her father going in the room, stops her father being killed, stops her younger father being put in prison and surviving. So it really, really is interesting to me that it seems that so many things are able to change on a dime. There's not really
yeah.
that they were sort of having a bit of like a veil of like science based, really sort of consistent based time travel. And then at the last episode, they just were like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just have a really fun rip and yarn story.
Well, I think, it was sort of setting up this idea that, like, because Sigma was so confident, obviously, that everything sort of sets itself up in the same. And we had it with in the last episode with our good little police officer friend, like him not shooting the director
Mm-hmm.
of the control bureau, and I think, like, I think Bing Bing stopping her dad from getting killed by his younger self was also supposed to indicate that we're now starting to see like a domino chain of effects where it's like the
Yep.
timeline is changing significantly,
Mm-hmm.
but like, it seems like it's happening on the periphery of like the main story, but then it's like all intersecting into it,
Yep.
where it's sort of revealed that like these changes are all ultimately helping, to like change the course of the boulder, so to speak, and like create a new timeline. So I think it's one of those things like they were just getting to the point. Like the more and more of these dominoes fall, the more it becomes like a new timeline. And if enough of them fall, it was gonna like divert the track. But like say
Yep.
if like Hante Sul had failed and Sigma had like succeeded, it would have just like righted itself eventually. Like somehow, some other way, Mr. Park would have ended up in prison.
Mm-hmm.
The head of the control bureau would have ended up dying. Like these other things. But like they changed enough through their own choices that they were able to like almost collectively change the course of the boulder. Hunter
Yeah.
Soul obviously had an important bit, but
It's interesting actually because I think to myself like that makes me because I was clinging on to the idea that it was all going to be like a loop or something.
yeah,
But now that I obviously see that it's not, it makes me really look back on some moments, like the moment where Sigma, sort of the Control Bureau guy, had created a file for Sigma, the next Sigma, so they knew what the differences were. Now that actually makes me think that yes, there are different variances every time around. Which
yeah,
the idea of every time around doesn't really make sense, but it kind of does if you view it in the in the way that like every time they go back in time, they're almost creating a new timeline, kind of.
yeah,
So like the Sigma now this time, it just changed too much. It changed too much that they could no longer have a handle
yeah.
on it, as you say, and it completely actually just like took Sigma out of power, really.
Yeah, I think it's following like again, not to reference a show that you haven't watched a whole lot of again, but Doctor Who again, where like when it comes to the timeline, there's like fixed points in the timeline, and there's a lot of fluid points, and like they like changed enough of the bits in between to finally be able to shift the fixed
Yeah.
point
Mm-hmm.
and like rearrange it. It's like there's another sci-fi anime slash game that I really love that sort of explores this concept called Steins Gate, where like the whole thing of them is trying to like create a new timeline because they're stuck between two timelines where like one of their friend always dies,
Mm-hmm.
but like he's trying to find a way of like diverting to a whole new timeline where like they can both survive,
Mm.
and it's a very complicated story, but like it's about changing just enough and almost like tricking the timeline into letting you do it,
Yeah.
to a certain extent, like sort of like forcing time's hand, because like time wants to always like correct itself and follow the same path. So you kind of have to be like, we're gonna will our way through this and make a difference in the timeline, affect it somehow.
Is a very interesting way of approaching it. To be honest with you, like I'm sort of happy that we got this interesting change of the style of time travel than I was expecting, because it throws way more questions at me, especially towards the end of the episode, which we'll get to. What do you think? Jason is still alive.
Yes, we revealed that that was also all part of Hontetsu's plan, and Jason. I also liked the fact that they added in that Jason wasn't being a dick by pretending to die.
Yeah, he fainted.
Just thought he fainted and he thought he was dying. So like that was all honest on his part. Like he thought it hurt a lot, and I was passing out. I thought I was dying. So fair.
Until they showed like that happen and he said that, I thought that Hante Sul had gone and given him the bulletproof vest so that it would change this time, and actually the first time he did die. Immediately that's what I thought. But then obviously when they said, "Oh, I actually did faint," though, obviously it'd be the same, because that's the thing.
Maybe it did, and then like after Hante Sul learned that from Sohei that Jason died, like he went back and changed it. But again, time righted itself somewhat, and it's like, well, he has to pass out or none of that will make sense for Sohei, you know? Again, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And it's also really interesting because that would imply that everything has to be predetermined, because obviously, you know, he knew he was going to go back into the past, so therefore that did happen. Like he knew he was going to go and do it, so therefore it happened. But the interesting part of that is that it doesn't mean actually that everything is predetermined. It's just that his timeline, Hante Sul's decision to do that, meant that happened the way it happened. Because then we know Eddie Kim comes in, and all of a sudden he takes Sigma's place. And that seems to be another change, because obviously the universe thought that Sigma was going to be Sigma, but now obviously Sigma's dead now. And now Eddie Kim comes in to take his place. And I love that idea that Hante Sul has so many people who are out to get him, and so many people who he has wronged in the past in their eyes, that there's always another one to step in to become the new evil monster who destroys the world.
Yeah, I just want to point that out. That's two things we can take from that scene. Confirmation that time will attempt to right itself, and confirmation that there is enough people in Hante Sul's life that are willing to blow up the world just because he's been that much of an asshole. He's been that much of a dickhead to them his entire life that they're like, you know what? Screw humanity. Like, I'm gonna wipe them. That's the two things I took from that scene, where it's just like, Hante Sul, you need to be like a much better person. Like, you can be kind of a dickhead, but you can't be so dickheady that you've turned like everyone around you into a potential sociopath or supervillain. Like, you need to tone it down, my dude. Like, just a little bit.
Exactly. And okay, question for you.
Yes.
Park in this episode. Now, Park went to try and kill himself or get killed or whatever he was doing. Bing Bing reveals, as we've said before. Now, this is my question. Later on, Park comes to the uploader, and then the information that's given through Park, through Hante Sul to the old Park, what Park says here, tell him this. He gives him, like, saying, your daughter is here, you know, all that sort of thing. Here's my question to you. How the hell is Park in the uploader? How did he know to go there? His plan was to go and die or to go and try and kill his younger self or whatever he was doing. Why is he now at the uploader?
Well, I think I'm assuming that Hante Sul probably told because we've seen that scene going back to when Hante Sul visited the two boys. So I'm assuming he probably told them where to meet it, and then the moment where, like, you know, Park decided not to let himself be killed by his younger self. You know, Bing Bing and him just were told, or maybe Bing Bing knew as well, and they went from there. But I'm assuming somebody texts somebody. You know, at that point, maybe Hante Sul sent a text message being like, "You dead? You up?"
Yeah. Probably, and obviously, I know that he told him somehow, because I was thinking, like, is the message that he gave to his young Park from a couple of days ago or yesterday or whatever enough to get Park to go there? No, it wasn't. So he must have said something to him off screen, unless we're completely missing it for some reason. Okay, awesome. So basically, then what happens is they go through the whole rigmarole. They get everything done. They get a younger version of Sigma to be collected by Hei's father. They get everything in place to sort of sniper them. But then Eddie Kim comes in and Huntesul decides to do what we've sort of been saying he should do from the start, even though I understand why he didn't. He just shot himself in the head.
Yeah, it's like so. There was like obviously a very because the timeline had changed, so Hay was being erased from existence, and they were having quite a tragic scene. But then suddenly she stopped disappearing, and Eddie Kim came in and shot her, which is not necessarily better than disappearing into nothingness. I can't imagine either is a fun thing to do, but and then he's going to he's trying to threaten Huntesul into making the device, and then Huntesul just picks up a gun and shoots himself, which would have made a much shorter series if he had done it earlier. But we understand why he didn't, and then we sort of see that through Huntesul's death, the timeline is forever cut off. Time travel's not invented, and Eddie Kim is scarred for life, I assume. It's
yeah. Okay, hang on a minute though. Hang on a minute. This is what I want to know.
He did shoot a woman, to be fair.
Yeah, he comes in, right? Eddie Kim comes in. He's now evil. That changes the
Evil
timeline.
Kim.
Yeah, so that moment of him coming in changes the timeline enough that then Hay is no longer disappearing because he's the new Sigma. Therefore, she will be in the future as a little girl, and she will be sent back. How that works, I don't know, because I'm assuming in this version of history, Huntesul did not tell Hay's family where to go to the bunker. But anyway, so now she's not disappearing anymore. But hang on a minute. Huntesul is able then just to decide then and there to change the future again by killing himself. So it's interesting that what is happening in the future changes 3 or 4 times in the space of a couple of minutes here, because she was going to disappear, and then Eddie Kim steps into the Sigma role, so she doesn't disappear, and then Huntesul kills himself, so then she does die. It's like really interesting the way it goes. Like,
yeah, so like I just like picturing like time in the corner, like the time variance authority from like the Marvel, like being like they're just looking about, being like, I honestly don't know what way this timeline's going. It's like it's not like branching off; it's doing like a snake wiggle across the screen, where it's like trying to decide what way it's going. It's like maybe do we delete this timeline? I don't know. But like I think like from a thematic / story reason, like I think ultimately the reason that Huntesul kills himself is because it kind of would have been more tragic if he and Hay were like completely separated, if you know what I mean, if like had to just watch her disappear. So like I think that was to sort of add to their like sort of tragic Romeo Juliet sort of situation, where like he kills himself, it ends up killing her, but they're we get the little scene at the end that we'll obviously get talking to in a bit. But yeah, I think it would have been a much more a sort of sadder ending in a weird way if he lived, but like the love of his life was forever gone, and he would never really get to meet her again.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about that last scene then. So he kills himself, and then he wakes up back on the plane. He then looks around, and she's with him. Hay's with him. He takes his medicine out as if to insinuate that now he sees her instead of his brother, like he did at the start of the show. Throws his medicine away and says, "You know what? Whether she's real or not, I don't care. She's here now." And he throws the thing away. Now, I've got a few questions about this. First of all, though, tell me what you think of it.
Again, it's a nice little sort of ending. It feels very metaphorical rather than literal, if you get me. I don't think this is like a real place. I feel like this is like either a metaphorical ending where they are united in death but happy, or like a sort of metaphysical heaven situation where
Do you think it's like the end of Infinity War, where Thanos walks up to a child Gamora and she says, "Is it done?" And he says, "Yes." It took what did it take? Everything.
Everything. Yeah, it's like I had to sacrifice myself to the person I love the most in the world. Yeah, like I think, I do think, I don't think we're back at the start. If you know what I mean, I feel like it's just we come back to the start because that's where all this began for Huntesul, so that's where his mind brings him back. Because
Right.
it's the beginning of how he met Hay. So like his mind has brought him back there, and like they're together in whatever that place is.
It's also every TV show, or every film really, but this is using the same thing. You have to return to the familiar place at the end of the hero's journey, don't you?
Yeah, it's the bookend. Like it's the you return home or return to the airplane that you see it from crashing into the earth. Same difference. But it was a nice little sight. It was good to see them like get a little send off, and it helped take a little bit of the sting out of their like deaths, just like that, and the knowledge that the timeline seems to have changed and the nuclear apocalypse has been avoided, or has it?
Yeah, okay. Let me tell you what I think now, right?
Okay, I'm
So
good.
so the reason why he reset to that point, let's imagine it as a literal place just for a minute for this thought experiment. The reason why it reset to that place because the plane would never have crashed, which would never have sent him on this journey because his brother would never have hit the plane in the middle of the air. Okay? So his brother time traveling is what caused the plane to crash. So if there's no time travel, if this story happened, then he would be back to that moment. So the way that he woke up in the plane, let's pretend it's literal, not a metaphorical thing. He woke up in the plane and he knew who she was. That implies to me, in this world where the plane doesn't crash and time travel doesn't exist, he still has his memories from what he did throughout the whole show. Now, what's hilarious about this to me is that there's like a little 8-year-old Hay with all of the memories in the world too.
Like just she has that would be traumatizing as an 8-year-old. It's like, Father, I have seen war.
Yeah.
like a child looking at you with like 1,000-yard stare, being like, we had to kill to survive.
Yeah.
I've done horrible things.
So that's what really interested me, like the idea of this, because like it also kind of maybe hints at that a little too, because like Sigma still hates him, like so his whole life has been reset,
well,
but he still hates him.
As we established with Eddie Kim, Hunter was such an asshole to so many people that like everyone's on the edge of wanting to kill him. I do like, obviously they end on that stinger for is it like a little moment of, is it resolved? I like to think that because like we sort of skimmed over this, but these were very like almost sweet moments because like when so his father is closing in on the present day Sigma, not the mastermind Sigma, like he's like alone, cold, bleeding from a gunshot wound, and like he's just so pitiful, and you kind of feel bad for him because this version of him hasn't really done all the terrible things that the other Sigma has done. He killed his parents, but they were abusive and stuff, and he's obviously had a terrible life. And like her father, Mr. Hay, like sort of just looks at him and seems to understand that like this is a lost and scared person.
Yeah.
And he like gives him his jacket, and like you see him like lead him out, and it's like I feel like if he had just arrested him, he would have still ended up becoming Sigma. But like the moment of compassion that he shows him, like the treating him, because we see that's like we see in the later stages of like the present day Sigma, the thing that leads him into becoming the dark timeline Sigma is the way that everyone treats him after he got shot, and the fact that like he was victimized, but he was treated like he was the criminal.
Yeah.
And like his father showing him that compassion seems to help bring him back from the edge. And we see him in a park painting portraits for like nice. I want to believe that there's a new timeline for him where he doesn't become like I'd like to think there's a timeline where he could become a happier person, like I maybe that's just the optimist in me, but I want a timeline where like life doesn't suck for that guy, because it's like he was very much pushed into that becoming an evil guy, oddly enough, by his future self to a certain extent.
Maybe it's a way, like maybe they're saying that yes, he is got a happier life now, yes, he feels like a little bit more at ease in the world, but he still has a dislike for this fella Hante Sul. And maybe instead of it being like he's going to kill the world and kill Hante Sul, maybe now it's I'm going to show Hante Sul who's boss and have a successful life. Who knows? But he still is. Yeah, he still is laughing evilly though. Let's just say that.
Yeah, he's got like a little bit of an evil laugh. And I think like he needs some therapy if we're 100% fair. Like even avoiding all the Hante Sul stuff, the boy did not have a good childhood. He needs a professional help. Everyone, if you're feeling down, consider speaking to someone professionally. They're very helpful. And I'm just saying he could use probably a boatload of it, and like like I want to believe that his father is the kind of guy who understands that and is maybe trying to get him counseling, and I feel like that would do him a lot of good. Like I think step one of counseling would probably be to get rid of the weird painting of Hante Sul that you made. That would probably be step one.
Yeah.
Step one, maybe consider, like, I don't know, moving to a different city or something like that. Like one that maybe doesn't like have a lot of Hante Sul stuff around. Though I suppose like it's hard for him to like wanna, well, one, he doesn't know how to make, well, he has the notebook, so maybe he can make time travel, but like it would be hard for me to imagine that he could make it on his own. And also, if Hante Sul is already dead, like, what can you do at that point? Are you gonna like go back in time and resurrect him just to mess with him? Just go stick with your painting, Sigma. Like, you were struggling as an artist, but you do have some talent. You know, you just gotta keep at it, and you were doing pretty well in the park with those kids. You know.
Well, a very hopeful ending, Emmett. A very hopeful ending.
He was painting portraits of children.
Yeah.
At the request of parents. That came out terribly. He. You've all seen that in the park sometimes, where there's a person who paints portraits of people, and it was, you know what I mean. He was being a good person.
I do know what you mean. He was being a lovely person, taking money for portraits. You know, they'll treasure that portrait. I mean, the kid chose a weird pose, but we'll not hold that against him. But yeah, it was a lovely portrait. But it's a hopeful ending, but I think. Hopeful enough, anyway. I think there is a little bit of like, oh, maybe it was happening again. But they wanted to add a little bit of that in, obviously, with the Sigma stuff.
Yeah, you want to tease something, you know, in case they decide to do another series or something like that, you know?
Yeah, but I don't think... Maybe they will, but as I've been told, maybe incorrectly, but I've been told about K-drama, Korean drama shows, that a lot of the time they are one series alone. So maybe I've been misinformed about that, but that's sort of what I feel. And I actually quite like that as well.
It's probably true. I meant more like, maybe not like another season, but like some sort of like sequel or like something else show, something connected with the Sisyphus, you know. But again, sometimes you just like to leave it on a cliffhanger. Sometimes, you know, some unresolved questions. It never hurts.
Yeah, exactly,
you know?
Exactly. Okay, so I just want to have a small chat, 3, 4, 5 minutes, something like that, about the similarities with and differences with the ending of Dark. Now, first of all, I want to say that clearly there's a similarity in that Hante Sul figured the whole thing out, just like Claudia did in Dark. Should say, spoilers for Dark, season 1, 2, and 3. But so there's that similarity. Okay, so that it's all revealed by the mastermind to what's happened. Another thing is that it was very not even thinking about the time travel, because there was very big differences in the time travel, but the way that Hante Sul figured it out, said what's going to happen, and then sort of they set in motion this really roller coaster of a downhill ride through the rest of the episode is very much like the last episode of Dark as well. Like, once Claudia tells Adam what's going on, it's like, all right, off to the races, let's go and fix it then. So there was definitely similarities in pacing. Did you find that?
Yeah. The way I would describe this happens in a lot of time travel shows, where like the revelation of how they untangle the knot or like cut the knot is oftentimes directed or shown like the end of a spy movie or a heist movie, where like they reveal how like they pulled it all off from
or like a whodunit, like Clue or something.
Yeah, like they do it very much like in that sort of style, where it's like, and this is how we pulled all of this stuff off. It's like it always sort of reveals itself in that kind of way. But yeah, there's definitely some similarities to like the fast-paced nature, and then like there's a lot of, in both shows, there's a lot of like moving in the timeline in the last episode to like line everything up perfectly to like set it off in the right way. And also we do the big thing is it requires the sacrifice of both of our protagonists to direct to a new, happier timeline, you know?
Yep, so that was what I was going to mention as well, is that the sacrifice of our two romantically involved protagonists, obviously very, very similar as well. One thing that is another similarity is the disappearing of things, like missiles and people, and sort of having an emotional music going while that's happening. That was another similarity, obviously. So this is where it differs. So obviously, I obviously love the show Dark, and I would not even put Sisyphus in the same realm of it in terms of consistent time travel. Having said that,
100%. Yeah.
Sisyphus was a load of fun, but it wasn't at the same level in terms of its own internal consistency. Even some people argue against Dark's internal consistency. I mean, if Dark's 97% internally consistent, well, Sisyphus is probably a 30%, we'll say.
Yeah. They're Dark and Sisyphus are two different ways of telling sort of similar stories, if you know what I mean. Where it's like Sisyphus really positions itself like a fast-paced action movie, whereas like Dark is a contemplative, like personal drama for the most part. Like, yes, time travel is involved, but like the real sort of pull for like Dark is a lot of the character relationships and how the time travel both interferes and makes those relationships happen.
Yeah.
You know, and the sort of complex family tree that we have to deal with. Whereas like Sisyphus it's more self-contained. You know, it's a very sort of again action focused and not turn off your brain, because there is some interesting concepts to think of, but like they never linger on anything, and like they're more interested in setting up the next action scene than exploring too many, you know, complex emotional things, which, like, again, there's nothing wrong with either approach. They're just two very different approaches, and there's like stuff to be, you know, sort of appreciated in both, and you can feel it very much in the endings, I feel, as well. Like the endings do a similar thing, but like have such different tones during it, you know. Like Sisyphus, there's like sniper shots and like, you know, explosions, and like in Dark, it's two very lost people trying to like fix the timeline, and it's a very tragic and like still bittersweet ending. God, the ending of Dark is so good. Spoilers.
Yeah, it is really good. What I will say as well, that like there's two other things I wanted to say. First thing was, I think that there's a Venn diagram in terms of people who will enjoy both shows. I think we are within it.
Yeah, 100%.
Just because people like Sisyphus doesn't mean they'll like Dark, and just because people like Dark doesn't mean they like Sisyphus. But there is definitely a happy middle there. Like, I love how technical Dark is. I love how serious they take their time travel. Having said that, it's not like whenever they did stuff, like they put them into a light tunnel, which I think is still internally consistent, but it is very spectacular rather than being grounded in any sort of realistic science. I still appreciated that when they decided to have them disappear in gold dust rather than have them just immediately disappear like they would if it was real. I appreciated that dramatic decision.
Yeah.
But I think the people who were annoyed at those dramatic decisions that the creators of Dark made aren't gonna like Sisyphus.
Yeah.
Because Sisyphus is all dramatic decisions.
Yeah. It's a lot of flash, if you know what I mean. Like that, there's a little bit, and like I'll go to bat for those artistic decisions at the end of Dark. Like, I understand, like, you know, scientifically speaking, it would just happen immediately and we wouldn't even notice it. But you've spent so much time with those characters and stuff like that.
You need a moment
and you
to
need
think
like
about it.
Yeah, you need a moment, and you need like a visual representation to really get across what's happening. If you just like clicked and it was gone, like it wouldn't have the same emotional weight to it. Like it has to be like a sort of, and it's also, you need to like factor in that that's also like a finale for a show, and like in the same way that Sisyphus does it when like the people are fading. It you know, it's the end of a story that we've been like engaged with for either 3 seasons or 16 episodes. Like, you got to give like people the moment to like appreciate and say goodbye to these characters. It's almost like a weird mourning period, you know, in a strange way.
It's like you have to give yourself a chance to think to yourself, what a wonderful world. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to say about the Dark and Sisyphus, and in the comments, guys, if there's anything you want to have a chat with us in the comments about the differences and similarities, all that sort of stuff. Not everyone who watches Sisyphus has seen Dark. Maybe on our channel they have, but maybe if you want to spoiler tag stuff on there as well, just to be safe. But the last thing I wanted to say was, whenever Dark first finished, a lot of people's understanding of the show was, in my opinion, now incorrect, and it was also my very first understanding of the show as well. I think the way Dark is done, it makes people think that this is true until you dig into it more, watch it more, and actually really see what they were doing. But when I first watched the ending of Dark, I put a video out there explaining that I thought it happened in my first ever review of the show. Explained video, sorry. My first ever explained video. I stand by all the timeline explanations, but the very end when I talked about Claudia, I do not stand by it. And that's me saying that everything happened like infinite times and small changes happened every time until there was a big change which led to an ending. That didn't happen in Dark, in my opinion. Now I believe through using the timeline splits, Claudia was able to send Adam in a different direction. But it doesn't mean that the original Adam who went to Eva and shot Eva dead and completed the loop doesn't mean that he still doesn't exist. It's kind of like the two Jonases being split halfway through season 3. That's how I view it now. So the loop is still the causal loop is still intact, as well as there also being a branch off timeline which led to Jonas and Marta going to the origin world. That's my understanding of Dark. People who listen to this channel know that by now. But what I'll say is that original understanding of the season 3 of Dark, which is incorrect in my opinion now, is actually literally what happens in Sisyphus. So the misunderstanding of Dark is actually what they chose to do in Sisyphus, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, it's there's so many like ways. There's so many like little minutia bits to time travel in like shows and stuff, depending on like how the rules factor into it. You can really take the story like time travel again. I understand for some people it's not for them. They feel it's like a really big plot contrivance and stuff. But if you like take the time and you build a show around it and you like put in effort and stuff like that, it can be very engaging. You know, there's still, you know, after watching Dark and after watching Sisyphus, there's still some questions I have in my head about like, you know, what would you do? Like we talked about, and we made a lot of jokes about it while watching Sisyphus. Like how would you make your fortune if you were sent into the past, but you were trying to do it covertly? And then like, you know, and with Dark, there's a little bit more contemplative questions of like, you know, what would happen if you were just stranded in like a different timeline? Like you know, you didn't know what happened. You just woke up one day and you were suddenly stuck in like the 60s or the 70s, and you were meeting like family members when they were young and stuff like that. You know, it's all very interesting sort of conundrums. Time travel is a plot device, but you know what you do with the plot device is oftentimes up to the storyteller, and a good storyteller can take any sort of plot device and make something interesting out of it. And you know, I enjoy time travel shows. It's generally the roundabout way of what I was getting around to say.
Oh yeah, time travel is my favorite genre of film. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't know, something about it. There's something about it that just strikes a chord with me. And the guys and girls who listen to this channel know that I am a big advocate for time travel. Having said that, it can be daft as a brush, and it can it can also be very highbrow stuff as well. So I really, really enjoy anything from Primer to, I don't know, there must be an episode of SpongeBob with time travel. Anything.
Probably.
Yeah, exactly. Anything with time travel, I'm all for. So, right, Emmett, any closing thoughts on Sisyphus? Because this is us done now.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to miss it in a weird way. It was very intense and very weird. But I think, you know, again, if you have any other K-dramas that you guys think that we might be interested in, or any other sort of Asian cinema or television stuff that you think might be good for us to watch, we're always open to suggestions. And sort of on that note, and talking about time travel shows, maybe at some stage I'll get you to watch Steins Gate with me, and we can talk about that on the show as well. It's another it's an anime about time travel as well.
Awesome.
So,
let us know in the comments if you're interested in that. Yeah, I would be. I would love to watch that. All right, awesome. Well, thanks very much, guys. If you have any questions for us, put them in the thing below. Subscribe, like, all that sort of stuff. Thanks very much, and we will catch you later. Bye-bye.